guys, welcome to the last video of the week. Today's topic is going to be on if you need to deload necessarily or not, and the short answer to this, I guess, is it depends. This is very timely for me because I had just finished up, well, got 3/4 of the way through this previous strength cycle and just kind of felt like my progression starting to slow down a little bit, have a little bit of aches and pains here and there, felt a little bit wiped out, so I decided to do a mini version of it. I was still hitting consistent, well, at least I was still tying PRs that I had hit a few weeks back, but there wasn't any necessarily any progression following it, so I just decided it'd be a good time to stop, maybe give my central nervous system a little break, and get started on a peaking cycle instead. But anyway, back to the original topic. Really what determines if you're going to need a deload or not is how hard you're training. And there are a couple videos that's been made recently, particularly on the Juggernaut Training Systems channel as well as Powerlifting to Win channel. Essentially, they refer to a few terms. One is minimum adaptive volume, which is like what is the lowest amount of volume / intensity, I guess, that you could train at to see any sort of given progress in your training. And while this may sound kind of good at first, well, if I train the lowest dose possible, that means I can continue getting a lot of progression long term. While that may be true, you're also not going to be able to get the maximum results you could in any given time span. So you might not necessarily need to deload if you're training in your minimum adaptive volume, but you're probably not going to see anywhere near the progression that you might have if you were tending to go a little bit over, maybe just to the point of your maximum recoverable volume into an overreach state. Bottom line, if you are not training into your maximum recoverable volume for at least a little bit of time, you're probably not going to need to deload. But in order to see the best results you can, because the sweet spot of where you're going to see the majority of your progress is somewhere in the middle between, probably a little bit toward the higher end, toward your maximum recoverable volume. And it changes as your strength increases, obviously. So let's say you're halfway through a strength cycle and you're seeing a fair amount of progress in rep PRs, so on. You're probably gaining a little bit of strength. So the volume that you originally needed to have a little bit of change at the beginning of the cycle may not necessarily be the same amount that you need toward the end when you're finishing the cycle. So as you go from, let's use this in terms of RPM. Let's say you're starting at 1,000 RPMs is your minimum adaptive volume, and eventually to keep getting those same increases at a steady pace, you're going to need to go up to 2,000 RPMs, something like that. And once you get toward the end of that threshold, you're probably going to need to switch gears. And by analogy, I guess we'll refer to that as just deloading. So essentially your body's going to get into a state where you might be doing a certain amount of volume, which your body isn't going to necessarily be able to recover from that easily week to week. What you do is you cut your weights and your volumes down significantly for maybe about a week or two span, depending on the amount of weight that you're lifting at the time, and basically give your body to have that super compensatory response in order to be able to recover basically from the amount of volume you've been doing. And then once you're in that stage, you can either decide to go into a peaking block like I'm doing, or maybe start your whole training cycle over again with possibly the new rep PRs that you would hit during your last training cycle, and you'll feel fresh going into it, and you can still continue to start hitting those higher volumes at higher intensities. It's just going to be, I think, better for long-term progression. Bottom line of this whole video, do you need to deload? Not necessarily if you're not training hard enough to really to dictate one, but if you are training at a pace or a volume that you do feel the need to recover from, I highly suggest doing it. You're probably going to see much better results in the long run, because as much as people hate to hear it, overtraining is a real thing. A lot of people don't get to it, they get to that overreach state, but if you stay in that overreach state too long, you're going to go into a state of overtraining. So deloading is a necessary evil, and I know it sucks going light sometimes because it's not nearly as fun as being able to hit rep PRs or 1 rep max PRs with those same weights, but it's a necessary evil for consistent, long-term, big progression. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll talk to you on Monday. In the meantime, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next week.